And this airplane, this one right here, got that hook on the back of it, that table, sticking out the back of that hook. You fly along and you come down and you sort of tilt your tail down on that hook and you hook onto them goalposts and you pull that glider up in the air. And in the process of doing that, these winches inside of the airplane all go to work and everything, and sort of absorb the shock, more or less, and everything. And if everything goes right and you're lucky and God willing and, all of that, well, I said, you right, sure? He says, well, that's what they tell me. I said, did you ever see it happen? He says, no, I never seen it happen. He said, I asked him, I said, you ever talked to anybody that hooked on one, pulled one up? He said, no. I said, I never talked to anybody. He said, well, I asked him, I said, well, did you ever, you got any records of, anybody hooking on one to pulling up? He said, no, I ain't got no records. I said, well, how do you know it works? He said, well, they tell me it works. I said, if they tell me it works, well, it works. And I said, well, Jesus Christ, I said, that looks like a sort of a big deal to me, just hooking on the glider down and put it up in there. And he said, yeah. I said, boy, it is a big deal. I said, you get a lot of satisfaction out of it. I said, well, what do you intend to do about this deal here? He says, well, he says, now you're a mighty fine man. Said, we've been sort of keeping an eye on you, more or less, it's like everybody else. But you sort of worked your way up. You're sort of at the top of the system. You do the next airplane that comes in here. The next airplane comes in here and needs a crew chief on it. You're the man who got the job. And he said, there it is. Oh, man. I said, look, sorry, Miss Shillick. I said, I'm perfectly satisfied where I am. I've got a good job here with old Marley D, and I like it. He said, yes, sir. I said, that's the way it is. Said, I like it, you like it. But said, I got to help me in for this tow job here. He said, you it. I said, I'm it. He said, you're it. I said, yes, sir. Well, that was it. So that was my first job as a crew chief on an airplane in the United States Army Air Corps over there in North Africa in spring of 1943. Well, I proceeded to, I picked me a crew chief, that is, assistant crew chief. Now, old Sergeant Marley D, which is my crew chief, a friend of mine, he had a brother in the outfit, Marshall Warren. Now, Marshall was about 2 years older than Marley D, but you'd never think it. You'd think that he was a young one, maybe because he didn't have the rank and anything. In fact, he was just a corporal at that time. And if you ever saw this movie star Clark Gable, and you looked away for a little while and saw Marshall, you couldn't hardly tell him apart. He was just that sort of fella. Now, he wasn't short. He wasn't real sharp like Marley D. He was more of a fun-loving guy and sort of, I don't know, sort of a different sort of fellow than Marley D, but he was a friend of mine. Him and Marley D and me, we were just real good friends. So, old Marshall, he was working on the line out there, and he's qualified, more or less. And I picked it for my sister. And, he was just like I was about that airplane. Now, he didn't want to fly on it, but I told him, like it was. I said, now, you don't have to fly on it and pick up them jobs that they might have you around. And actually, I might not have to fly on it all myself, but still, I want you for my assistant. Well, yeah, okay. So we got to get on that deal. Now, me and Marshall, we started working on that airplane, and we got to look like something on the outside. There wasn't much you could do about it, paint job and all like that. We got it cleaned up, satisfied our flight chief and everything, and we really didn't know what to think about it, because you didn't go out on the regular flights like all other airplanes did. They would, some of them, go over and kept out on that eastern front over there with the British Army, or maybe on that western front with the Allies, or you might fly back down hard and stuff. But didn't do none of that because you didn't have room in there in the cargo compartment or anything. It was just a regular pickup job. And I really don't know why they brought into the outfit. I sort of asked around, different people, but nobody knew. It just there. And while it was there, well, we had to make use of what it was for. We had to do the training that it was supposed to be trained for, and what it was for was to pick up things on the ground, and that's what it was. So, well, me and Martha, we got in shape mechanically and everything like that. It was a pretty good airplane, and but during the course of following days, the pilots, all of them, they'd come out and look it over. All from the top pilots on down, they'd all come out and they'd look all through it and examine it and comment on it and here and there, and it went on like that about a couple of weeks. Everybody got acquainted with it and everything, and finally, well, just sitting around there, and I guess maybe the commanding officer, Bill Tisch, or his executive, or somebody decided that had to do something about the airplane, had to fly it or something like that. So at that time we were stationed out there sort of on the edge of the desert and sort of on maneuvers. We were practicing at that time of pulling gliders, taking gliders off, because later on, we pulled gliders into bays in Sicily and bays in Italy and bays in southern France. That is our second job. Of course, we dropped paratroopers first time, and we were out there in the desert practicing these maneuvers. Whatever thing you didn't need working someplace else was always out there training, and you took turns about, and everybody got in on everything. Well, they finally set up some goal posts out there way down on one end of the field, sort of like like say football goal post, and they had the rope stretched across the top, and they had the glider sitting back there. And I remember the first morning that pilots came out to fly the airplane. Well, they got in it, and we took off. We circled around the field, 2 or 3 times. That glider sitting down there, and we come on down pretty close to it. Made 2 or 3 phases down there. See, just where it was and everything, and get the position on it and everything. And we was flying around up there, and the pilot said, okay, said, everybody get ready now, we'll go down and hook on to it. So we fly around there and we buzzed down to it, and just last minute, we buzzed back up. We didn't hook on to it. And we got back up and leveled off, and the pilot says, well, everything wasn't just right. And we flew around there, circled the field 2 or 3 times, and we buzzed back down, and just like we was going to hook on to it, but we didn't. We pulled back up, and the pilot says, well, everything wasn't just right this time. And we flew around a little while, about that time, it was dinner time, and we come on down to dinner. Well, after dinner, a couple of new pilots come out, and they say, well, let's go on out and get this. Let's go on out and get this thing over with. And I figured, well, I know about how it's going to get over with. But I didn't say nothing, so we went on. We took off, went on back up in the air. We circled around there a few times. And this guy says, Sergeant, ready? I said, yes, sir, I'm ready. I've been ready. Okay, we'll go down and get it. So we made a dive down for it. And just the last minute, we pulled back up. And the pilot said, everything wasn't just right. Just like the other guy done, It sounded like it had been sort of disgusted down there in officers' mess, nightfall. Well, how it is in the Army, just like in the Army anywhere else. And they transferred that airplane out. They shipped it out, and I wasn't too sorry about that. And I went back on the job with old Marl D. Warren, and the next thing that I really remember that stands out in my mind, well, we were flying around and training paratroopers and pulling bladders and everything. And I remember one day we flew over to an airfield 25-30 minutes away, and I was on the airplane by myself. I don't know where Marl D. was, but just me and the pilot and co-pilot. And we landed there at this field, and it was a place that they were training paratroopers. And it happened that this particular day that we were going to jump a bunch of paratroopers that they had never jumped before. They were just kids, and it was their first jump. And we landed there at that field, and we picked up these boys. They must have been 15 or 16 of them. And they were just learning how to be paratroopers. They had formed an outfit over there, you know, in North Africa, and these boys were, they had their basic training, everything on parachute drops, but they'd never made a jump before. And we landed there, and they got in their airplane, and that would be their first jump. And well, we took off, and they were just a bunch of kids, most of them a lot younger than me, and they were very enthused about this new project they were getting into, and then they were just, oh man, they were just kidding, slapping each other on the shoulder and everything. We were flying on there. We were just going to fly over there a few miles, you know, maybe 25-30 minutes like that, and then I'd drop them out. These troopers had two officers with them, and they were experienced combat officers, and one of them would jump out first. And then if all the troopers went out, the other man, he would jump out last. I sat back there by the jump door. We had the door open, and they could just jump out, and they would all sit down there on those benches and would fly along. And back there next to the door, there was a couple lights there. There was a green light and a yellow light, and you're flying along, you get pretty close to the target, you know, where it's going to jump out. And the pilot up there in the cockpit, he'd punch a button, it'd turn on that yellow light back there. And when that happened, all the paratroopers would stand up. And right down the top of the airplane, all the way down, they had a cable there. And when these parachute troopers stood up, well, they'd be, you know, right stacked off one behind each other. And the rear man, he would reach over on the man in front of him, his back, and he'd take that static line out of the man's parachute and hook it onto that cable up on top. And then that man that the parachute belonged to, he would turn around and he would check it and see if it was all right. And it went on around down the line like that, you know. And then when you got right near the drop area, well, the pilot up in the cockpit would push another button, and it flashed green light back down there by the jump door. And that was just like an order, you know, from an officer to the yellow means get ready, and the green meant jump out. It was just like that, an order from an officer to a soldier, and they're supposed to, you know, do what that said. And one of the officers would be the first man to jump. Now, he'd go out first, and he'd expect all the troopers to come out right behind him. Officer, he would stand down there by the jump door. And the crew chief, which was me, I would stand down there by the jump officer. And as the guys went out, well, as they're static cords come by on that cable up there, I'd sort of pull them back out of the way, you know, where they wouldn't get tangled up with the rest of the guys. That was my job in that operation. Well, it so happened this day we had these guys that had never jumped before, and boy, I'm telling you, they were just, well, kids more or less, but they were just betting each other who's going to hit the ground first and who shoot up first and all like that. Well, at that time, I'd never dropped any paratroopers before, you know, that hadn't been experienced. And I was just sort of, you know, on the deal. But I was standing back there by the door, and this officer was standing there, and we got the green light to jump. And you know, it was just a practice mission. We was out over the desert there, and it wasn't up too high. A little bit higher than a combat team would drop. It was much higher, so, you know, they'd give a real good chance to shoot those and everything like that. And emergency, if their chutes didn't open, so they could pull emergency chutes. But here they come, and this officer standing by the door. And two or three of them went out. Boy, they jumped out. And maybe the fourth, fifth guy, he come up there to the door. And instead of jumping, he just put his arms right up, one hand on each side of the door, and just stood there. Boy, he just froze. He wasn't going to jump. He didn't think it was. He didn't know anything about it, but when he got up there, he was just froze. So this officer just sort of put his arm around the guy's shoulder and sort of patted him on the shoulder and says, "It's all right, son." Said, "Just step back over here. Way. Come on now, son. Step back." And this guy just stepped back, and the rest of the guys went on and jumped out. Well, there he was. Now this guy that didn't jump, now he sat back down there on one of the benches. Well, I had some work to do, and had to pull in all those static lines and get them down off the cable, sort of straighten them out so this jump officer could take them off the plane with him when he left. And, well, after I got this work done, well, I noticed that hadn't been anybody around there but me. The cockpit door was still closed, and the jump officer, I didn't see him around anywhere. So this kid, he just sitting there with his head down in his hand. He hadn't moved since he sat down there. And you can sort of imagine what it was like to him. And I was just about as green about that sort of thing as he was, because that's been my first experience with a paratrooper that didn't jump out. All the rest of them that I ever had in the airplane, they all jumped. Seemed like they had sort of a fear of landing an airplane. They thought it was dangerous, and they had questioned you about it all the time. You know, reckon that everything's going all right. We won't have to go back and land and stuff like that. Well, this boy didn't jump. Well, I felt real sorry for him when I got time to. It sort of touched my heart a little bit. I tried to talk to him a little bit and offered him a cigarette or a package of gum, and nothing I'd say make any difference. He wouldn't say nothing. He wouldn't raise his head up. He wouldn't move. Well, that was that. So we landed at an airfield there, a different one from one we'd taken off, and this kid got out. There was a jeep come up there and got him, and he got out, and they drove off with him. We took off, and we still had this jump officer on there. And then, well, I went up there and was talking to him, and he told us sort of how it was, that really nothing you could do for the boy. He didn't want to talk to you, and he didn't want to have anything to say. He just wanted to sit there and think. So the best thing you do is just leave him alone. It seems sort of cruel and cold-hearted, but that's where it was, and that's the way that I got to doing it later on. Now, every time you went up, you didn't have occasion like that. They jumped out most of the time. But I reckon maybe 5 or 6 times we went up, and they'd be one of them failed to jump. And I got where didn't let it bother me, and I acted just like that officer did, and I guess it was the best thing to do. Because he told me that they had take that boy back to that new camp there, and they had transfer him out in another outfit, and wouldn't nobody know that he chickened out unless he told them. And if he wanted to, they would give him another chance, but he didn't know much about that. A guy failed twice. That would be a big lick, you know. Well, we took this officer on over there, back where we picked him up, and that was all of that. Well, we were getting ready for this invasion of Sicily, and finally the day rolled around. Now, at this time, I was back working as assistant crew chief for Sergeant Warren, and I didn't make this initial drop over there. I believe it took place July the 9th, 1943, and we dropped 505th Combat Team of 82nd Airborne Division. There was a Colonel Gavin in charge of the deal there. It's part of General Patton's 7th Army. Well, they dropped the paratroopers over there that night, and then the next night, well, I made a drop over there on the east coast of Sicily, and we carried some English paratroopers over there. They were some kind of technicians or something like that. They wasn't regular combat infantry men. Of course, they were combat men, all right, but I believe they were Signal Corps, something like that. Well, that deal went pretty quick up to Sicily there, and in the meantime, before that, well, you know, we run all the Germans and Italians out of North Africa, and we moved on up in Tunisia, up there to Tunis. They had a big airfield there, and we stayed around there a while, and most of what we were doing then, we were supplying those armies over there in Sicily. They fought over there all months or so, something like that. It wasn't too much of a deal. I think Germans was retreating all the time, so the rear yard action, it sounded pretty big, but it was a lot more politics to it than it was actual fighting, I think. But anyhow, we were supplying those armies up in there, and after they drove the Germans out of Sicily, well, it wasn't long before the Italians surrendered, which didn't mean too much, because most of the armies had been captured down in Italy, and what few they had around Italy over there, well, them Germans, you know, they were still in control over there. Well, we moved over to Sicily. We was at a little field called Comiso. It was near a larger town, the name of Ragusa. It was sort of what I'd call on just inland a little ways from the southern coast, along about the middle of the island, and had a pretty nice field over there, but the hangars and all the buildings had been bombed out, and we lived in tents there. We're down in a big old olive grove right next to a big vineyard, some grapevines, and it was a little bit different type of country from Africa. It was hilly and rocky, but a lot of vegetation. They grew a lot of stuff over there. Had lots of trees and everything. Well, we got settled in there, and then we started flying back down the other way. Mostly we'd go down across the Mediterranean there to Africa, and along about that time, well, they started sending guys home, these crew chiefs that they'd made 2 invasions already, and with so many hours, they had sort of a rotation plan for them. So many combat hours with
certain length of time over there. Well, they got to go home. I think these first guys went home under a different deal, and then after that they made this rotation system. But old Marley D, he left, and so I got in the airplane then. I sort of went up on the seniority roster and got to be crew chief of airplane. That I guess that was in about the fall of 1943, and I remembered what old Marley told me and taught me, and I kept a pretty trim plane, clean, and everything like that. And got some pretty good pilots, pretty good crews, and I got old Marshall for my assistant again, and we got along good, and we stayed on a mail run most of the time. We'd just, for instance, you'd start out down there on the extreme west coast of Africa. It was up a little ways from Casablanca airport there they call Port Leoti, and we'd fly in there and spend the night there, and early the next morning, well, we'd take off. I think during the night that the ships came in, there was a seaport there, and maybe some the big airplanes that might have flew over there from the States. Then we'd take off next morning, and we'd have generally high priority mail or replacements for combat cruise pilots, generally fighter and bomber pilot crews, and some what you call VIPs, higher ranking officers, every now and then a civilian, you know, that got that transportation like that, and we'd leave Port Leoti, and we generally, our first stop would be Casablanca, and then our next stop would generally be Oran, and we'd go right on up the coast, and we'd hit Algiers, and we'd hit Tunis. Now, we arranged to spend the night in all of these towns at one time or another. We were flying on this what they call it, the MATS, Mediterranean Air Transport Command, and they had a regular schedule, just like the airliners does over here, except to use Army plane. And we did up there to Tunis. Well, we cut across back over to Sicily, and we'd hit Palermo, Catania, and sometimes spend a night there. And then we're going over to the island of Sardinia and Corsica, and we'd generally spend a night over there in Corsica, Jacchio. That was the place there where Napoleon was born. In fact, I went up there and went all to the house where he was born at. And, well, we'd cut back then. Next day we'd come back and we'd hit one town in Sicily. And then we'd cut on back down to Tunis again. And we'd go on down towards Cairo, Egypt. We'd hit Tripoli, Benghazi. And we'd spend the night there in Cairo, Egypt. And a lot of times we'd spend 2 nights around there. These pilots, they complete charge of everything, you know. Of course, they took advantage of, you know, everything, bad weather, stuff like that. And they're all pretty nice fellas. And, well, we'd finally leave Cairo. We'd beat it back down at the west coast again, and wind up down there in Port Leoti. And now a round trip like that, sometime on average it'd run about 10 days, and just depending on what the pilot thought about it, sometimes it took about 2 weeks to make a round trip like that. Now, when we were on jobs like that, well, most of the time, we never would hit our squadron. We'd stay away from there. Had any inspections to do, well, I'd get them done in the big air bases around. And of course, you hit the squadron, you know, they might they might pull you off the job. They didn't care what might happen. So sometimes, it'd be months, 6 weeks, sometimes 2 months that you wouldn't even see your outfit. And most of the time, like that, the crew chief and assistant both went on the airplane. But in case they didn't both have to fly, it just required that it be an air engineer on there, and that's what we were, just one. But we could both fly. But in case one guy stayed back at the squadron, well, while I was gone, he didn't have anything to do. You know, in the airplane there, he's on duty 24 hours, but when the ship's gone, didn't have anything to do. It's sort of odd, but when you did do something, it's pretty important, you know, and sometimes, well, it was sort of dangerous flying, you know.
Now, the reason I got this job as crew chief, we got a couple of airplanes in our outfit, but they didn't stay very long. And they transferred them out, and I had to go back on a job as assistant crew chief. And I got a job with a Sergeant Beeson, and I stayed with him a pretty good while.
Well, we got called back to the squadron there one day. Let's see, that was over in the next year, 1944, and along about March, I believe it was. And we got called back to the squadron. They were still in Sicily. Well, we flew back there, and the outfit was getting ready to leave the airplanes and the combat crews. Of course, the regular squadron was going to stay there. And come to find out, we were going to India, the country of India. And that was way over there in that Pacific Theater of Operations, CBI they call it. And it didn't look too good. And because we'd been over there, we'd been in that war over there for a good little while. And some of our guys already went home, and here we are going to India, but it really didn't make no difference. It was sort of looking forward to it. You know, more country you see, better off you are, and we couldn't hardly be getting into any more trouble or could be any more dangerous than what was already doing. So we got them airplanes ready. They put the auxiliary fuel tanks in them. I believe it's about 4 200-gallon tanks they put in the cabin there, and running fuel lines around, you know, to the labor tanks. And but we took off. The deal was that the Japs sort of they had the whole of Indochina, or what they called it then, whatever Vietnam is now, and Laos and Cambodia and Burma, and they were over in Burma, time right next door to India, and they were sort of getting pretty close as wanting to go in there and hook up with them Germans over there in Yugoslavia and over in that way. And well, they needed some transportation over there, some airplanes. So they took our whole group. I believe it was about 5 or 6 squadrons, and then they took 2 or 3 squadrons out of another group, and we flew over there. We went down to Egypt and back down to Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, and over in that way. And it was sort of land there most everywhere. And we come in there to Karachi. That's where we first landed, I believe, in Karachi, India. And then we went on over to Agra, and we went on way up what they call Upper Assam, and pretty close to New Delhi. And we was over at an airfield named Succotaine, and it wasn't very far from the Burma border there, where that Lido Road started off with, down through that jungle area to the town airport of Lido. And we were flying supplies over into Burma. Dropped most of them out in parachutes, or they had this rice was in just bags. Had 3 bags, and 2 of them wrapped around another that was full of rice. You'd kick them out down on the ground. We had quartermaster guys went with us, done that. And maybe 1 or 2 of the bags, you know, would break, but the next bag wrapped around it would generally hold the rice. And we done that kind of work. It was bad flying weather over there. It was cloudy, and it was just before the rainy season. In fact, the rainy season started before we left there, actually. A lot of mud and water and mosquitoes and everything like that. But it was a strange country over there. And I'd done the same thing over in India that I'd done everywhere else. That for all the time that I could, I'd take off, you know, and see the countryside and all them little towns and villages, and see what them people's like and everything. And I guess I spent about as much time messing around in them little villages as I did around the camp there. Some of the larger towns over there was Sadia, Dinjan, Tinsuki, Chabu, and Lido, of course, over on that Burma-India border, where they was building that Lido Road over to China. Went over through the northern part, over through the town of Mishino, which was just a few miles from the Chinese border. You could see China over there from Mishino. And at that time, the Japanese had most all of Burma. They had all the southern part of it, and they had was there in what they called Indochina then, was North and South Vietnam, and Thailand, Laos, and Cambodia. And what they wanted to do, these Japs were to come in through Burma up to India, and on over through Iran up to Turkey, Greece, and Bulgaria, meet up with them Germans over there. It looked like a pretty far way to go, but that's what they had in mind. And at that time, they were fighting in there, and they had this airfield in the city of Mishino, and that was what they carried us over there for. They had a big deal going there. General Stilwell was the commanding general in there. Of course, the overall commander was an Englishman, Admiral Mountbatten, and General Olds was our boss in charge of the troop carrier command. But it seemed like that most everywhere you went, them linemen was in charge of everything. Even over there now, General Montgomery, Alexander, they had just left there some months back. Went down there North Africa to fight the Germans down there, and they had charge down there. And even on the second front over there, when they invaded France, the linemen were in charge of that. Montgomery, Dempsey, of course, General Bradley and his bunch, Patton and so forth. Seemed to me like they done most of the fighting. Even in Sicily, it was General Montgomery's deal. But about the only place that I can remember that the linemen wasn't in complete charge is when they left Italy over to General Mark Clark. They were trying to get this airfield of Mishino, and we were hauling supplies in there and troops. And finally they did capture that town of Mishino. We did. They drove the Americans and the British And we done our part. We flew troops in, supplies and everything like that. And we lost a lot of airplanes over there. Well, we left India in about the middle of June 1944, and we flew back over to India and what's now Pakistan, up to Iran, Iraq, and on over into Palestine, what is now, I believe, what they call Israel. And you know, a lot of people think all that's in Africa, but it's in Asia actually. And we stopped off at a Air Force rest camp there at Tel Aviv, and we stayed there 2 or 3 days. And during that time, I got to see the countryside some more. Went over to the Holy Land and saw where Christ was born and crucified, and all places like that, and it was real interesting. Well, we finally got back to Sicily to our outfit over there, and as far as I know, up to that time and since, that we were the only Army air outfit that had ever left one theater of operations and went to another. Left one war and went to another war, and then come back to the old war. But we done it. You know, at that time we had 2 wars going. We was fighting the Germans, and we was fighting the Japs, and each one of them was sort of entirely different thing altogether. And the old 18th, we got in on both of it. While we was working out of India over there and flying over into Burma, dropping these supplies, there was a couple of times there we dropped supplies where the pilot said that we was over the Chinese border. We dropped them in China, and they'd keep us informed about things like that. And on the way back, we was flying up through this country of Iran, and quite a few times pilots show us off to the right there. They'd say, it's a good little ways over there, but you could see it. And of course it looked just like any other place to me, but thinking back, you know, well, it's so nice to remember I got to see China and Russia. And we stopped there at there's a big city there, I believe they call it Tehran. It was right on that Caspian Sea. And that was a pretty big body of water. And Russia surrounded it on one side, and part of Europe, and Iran, Iraq on the other side. And we spent the night there, refueling, and sort of resting up. And it was sort of a depot there for, must have been Lend-Lease supplies for the Russians, because they was all kind of aircraft there on that field, and most all of them had big red star of Russia on them. They were American-made planes, but it was Lend-Lease stuff, you might say. And then all up and down that flight there from India, we saw a lot of Russian airplanes, fighter planes, and things like that. They'd come up and take a look at you, know, circle around you a little bit, and fly on off. I guess they knew what they're doing, figured all right. But we spent the night there in that big seaport town, and then we went back over there to the Middle East and saw Jerusalem, Bethlehem, and all those places there. And then we went on back, finally got back to Sicily over there. And that was in just about the middle of June 1944. And I'll sort of try to bring you up a little bit to date on what happened while we was gone. Of course, we hadn't been gone for about 4 months. And you know your history. Now, this was in June 1944. Well, along about the first week of September in 1943, well, they started, they invaded Italy. The army started over in Italy, and of course the English, Montgomery, they landed there at Reggio, right across the Straits of Messina, right on the toe of the boot, and they started on up, worked right on up there, and of course the first airborne division was hauled into Toronto, and they worked their way over to Brindisi and up to Barrie, over there on the East Coast, just about the same time that American 78th Division disembarked there, and paratroopers were dropped in there, 1st Parachute Division. Now, talk about this 78th.
Now, big old Thomas Grissom went in. Went in on that deal right there. Of course, he was in the Signal Corps. I remember him telling me one time that he was in a Condor. Excuse me. They landed there at Barrie. But while they were standing off out there, fixing to go ashore, well, Germans come in and burned the fort that night. Well, I remember one night that that we flew up that way, and there was a lot of bombing going on. Might have been the same time. I don't know. Anyhow,